Hi, this is Chuck Lavazzi, Senior Performing Arts Critic at 881 KDHX in St. Louis. And in this edition of Chuck's Culture Channel, I'm bringing you part one of a two-part interview with comic, author, and podcaster Paula Poundstone. We recorded this on April 8th, 2022, so we are now talking about her upcoming performance here in St. Louis on April 30th. But even if you're watching this after April 30th, 2022, be assured Paula is undoubtedly coming to a city near you because her career as a traveling stand-up comic is back up and on the road after being put on hold by COVID-19. That's mostly what we're talking about in this first half of the interview. So, watch, listen, enjoy. Hey, this is Chuck Lavazzi for Chuck's Culture Channel on YouTube. And I'm here virtually in the Sheldon. I'm really not, but it looks good. And that's because in the Sheldon on April 30th, you're going to see live and not virtually, the person immediately to the side here, Paula Poundstone, the noted comedian, author, podcaster, and raconteur. Paula, welcome to the Chuck's Culture Channel YouTube playlist.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Chuck. Did you say Chuck's Culture Channel?
That's what I'm calling it, yeah.
Oh, boy. Usually my name and culture are not used in the same sentence, so this is very flattering. It's very
yeah. Well, let's see what kind of culture, actually.
Yeah,
but.
yeah. Well, low base bottom feeder culture.
And you're going to be here in St. Louis. Let's make sure everybody knows about that first. On the 30th of April at the Sheldon Concert Hall right here. And this was a show that was postponed from 2021, right?
Probably. A lot of the shows that I'm doing now are postponed. I'm catching up on COVID.
Yeah.
COVID disturbed shows. Yep.
Yeah.
And actually, it's been great. People keep coming up to me saying, "Oh my gosh, that was so much fun." I haven't laughed that hard in years. Or thank you for coming. I missed everybody else as well. It's no big challenge for me to go out and work. But I feel like I feel like we were all reminded how much we need that.
Yeah.
Which is, I know that all the theaters are relaxing their COVID restrictions.
To varying degrees, yeah.
To varying degrees. I still would like my audiences to be masked if possible and certainly vaccinated, because this thing that we have that I missed tremendously when I was not unable to do it, and that people tell me that they are really enjoying having back, I want to protect it.
Oh, sure.
I don't want it to go away again. And I don't want to kill my audience. That doesn't seem.
That never works. No,
it's not a good business model.
No. I mean, it seems to be for the GOP, but for the rest of us, not so much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it didn't work for the Pinto people, as I recall.
No, not a big success. I mean, I don't want to be, Debbie Downer or anything, but of course, the past couple of years have been pretty damn tough for the performing arts.
What happened right away in that I came off the road in March of what I guess was 2020, right? Came off the road in mid-March, maybe second weekend in March, and I thought it was gonna last a couple of weeks, and so I just started making comedy videos to try to entertain people, and then it became clear that it was going to last more than a couple of weeks. But during that initial period, I was besieged by all the theaters that were having to shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And by every charity that I've ever done work for, all wanting videos, or some of the charitable organizations all legitimate, by the way. Nothing wrong with any of these requests. But some of them were going to have a live show, and now they can't, and so they're going to move it to a Zoom show. And when this was first, the idea of me doing something on a Zoom show, it didn't sound right from the start. And I would say, gee, I'm not sure how you do stand-up. Oh, no, it'll be good. It'll be good, they say. And they would say to me, like, oh, we have this musician or that musician, and it's going to be great. And I'm like, yeah, but a musician doesn't require the same response and connection that a comic does. Oh, no, we'll laugh, they would say. So
nobody will know it, but
I never did actual stand-up in my living room. I just wouldn't, because it's too stupid. But I did, various sort of, contoured things to participate in these Zoom shows. And the whole time I was so jealous of musicians, like Mary Chapin Carpenter. They did I guess she was doing these intimate concerts from her living room, and she'd be sitting on a kitchen stool, and her dog would come through. And I watched the NewsHour on PBS almost every night. And NewsHour did a big story about Mary Chapin Carpenter sitting on her stool. Isn't it intimate? Isn't it wonderful? I came to hate Mary Chapin Carpenter.
I can understand why.
By the way, I said that in some interviews, and and then I was working one of my first jobs back, which would have been last June. One of my first jobs back after the 15 months was in Virginia, and I go into the dressing room, and in this theater, I've forgotten where exactly, but I go into the dressing room, and there's this lovely bouquet of flowers and a card that says my name on it, like an envelope with clearly has a card in it as mine. And I didn't open it right away because sometimes theaters give me flowers, and I just assumed it was from the theater. And it was very nice. It was very pretty. It was very lovely. But I didn't. And then finally I thought, I should open this card so I know who to thank, what to say. So I opened the card, and this piece of paper falls out. And when later I look at the piece of paper, it was a copy of an interview that I had done where I talk about hating Mary Chapin Carpenter. And the card says, "Dear Paula, I love you anyways." And it's signed Mary Chapin Carpenter. And I'm like, no, that's a joke. That's got to be kidding. And I went out on stage and I told her, first I looked it up. First I looked up, where does she live? Well, she lives in Virginia. And then I went on stage. I told them the story, and I said, I think it's just a prank. And somebody in the audience went, no, it's not a prank. And it wasn't her. It was the woman who she had deliver the flowers. But I was only kidding.
That can be, I don't know. So some people don't understand that if you're a professional comedian, kidding is your job, isn't it? I mean,
oh no, I think she understood.
I'm pretty sure.
I think she understood. Because just the idea of taking someone as sort of, benign and harmless as Mary Chapin Carpenter and making her my Black Bart, making her my enemy, it just sounded so funny to me, which is why I did it. That, and that she kept getting all sorts of credit for playing her guitar on a stool and her comics got one thing. You get one thing you can elicit to be considered successful. Yeah. You don't do that, guess what? You lose.
You end up performing for the guys digging up the alley in the.
Well, precisely. The more I think about it, the more angry I get with Mary Chapin Carpenter again.
Well, maybe we should stop talking about her.
That wench.
What I'd like to do is give people an idea of what to expect when you come here to St. Louis. Maybe people who haven't seen you before, and haven't had a chance to listen to your wonderful podcast. Nobody listens to Paula Poundstone. You want to give them an idea of what sort of stuff
I'll tell you what won't happen. Mary Chapin Carpenter's not coming.
Probably not. Probably Stephen King won't either,
No, Stephen King's not even speaking to me.
You can
Um,
explain that. You guys really dissed Stephen King on your
okay.
book.
I have a podcast called Nobody Listens to Paula Poundstone. And we've been on for about 3 years. And by the way, a lot of my audience is my age or older. Not all of them, but a lot. And sometimes I tell them that I have a podcast and they'll say to me, we don't know how to listen to a podcast. So I'm going to show you now how to listen to a podcast. That's how you do it.
That's how
It's
you
not
do
all
it.
that challenging, really.
You
And
got to
mine
press
is
a couple of little buttons, but yeah.
mine's very easy to find because yes, you could listen to it on where people always go, or wherever you get your podcast. And you could listen to it wherever you get your podcast, or you can just go to my website, which is paulapoundstone.com, and it's right there on the homepage. There's a point to this story. Oh, I know. So we started a book club
Right.
on our podcast. That's just like usually for a few minutes in the beginning of the show, we have a meeting of our book club. And we started off with Moby Dick. I think the next book was Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
And
Boy,
then,
was that a hit.
yeah. Then we let the audience, the listeners choose, and they chose Fight Club. And then we decided that, I said, well, what if we find an author and find out what their favorite books are? And so, I don't know, I just randomly chose Stephen King. And I found this list of Stephen King's favorite books. And one of them was a book called Dark Corners by Ruth Rendell. And as it turned, I mean, we hated it. It was really not a good book, I think.
I tried to stick with it I stuck with it for the first 10 chapters, and I just said, hell with it.
It really was not I mean, there was just nothing. Some of the storylines just sort of dropped.
Yeah.
It was really not a great book. And
Like
then,
a bunch of stuff that had nothing to do with, just a bunch of
yeah,
things.
there was sort of nothing really compelling in it.
Mhm.
I did try to get those diet pills, but but then it turns out, so we kept maligning Stephen King because we had gotten the book from his list. So we kept going, why would Stephen King send us on this? And later we found out, but specifically that book was on the list. I mean, I think he may have sung Ruth Rendell's praises for some other books as well. But that book, I didn't make it up. That book was on the list. It turns out that the author had a stroke, I think, while she was writing the book. And apparently it was such an ironclad deal with the publisher that she finished it. But let's just say that I would say for at least 4/5 of the book, she just phoned it in. She just sort of, and then it turned out like she died, right? Maybe even before it was published. So yeah, wasn't.
And then you feel bad about dissing it, because
No, because I don't personally, because she's dead,
yes.
And
she doesn't care anymore.
If I were to get a bouquet of flowers from Ruth Rendell when I went into a dressing room in a theater, I would freak out.
That's true.
Unlike Mary Chapin Carpenter, there's nothing Ruth Rendell can do about it. I'm an atheist, and I believe that when you die, guess what? That's it. You're mulch. In fact,
mulch. Yeah, compost.
We had someone on our show one time. It's not largely a celebrity-driven podcast, although occasionally we have somebody whose name you would know. But mostly I get an expert. It's mostly a comedy show, by the way, but we do an interview on most episodes with someone with real information to share. So that if you listen to the whole podcast and you go, boy, I didn't think that was very funny, at least you go away with some information. And so we had done one episode where we interviewed a woman who is the founder of an organization in a business in Washington State that offers a wide alternative of ways to dispose of one's body. And largely it's mulching. You can get mulched, and I love that. I have a mulch pile just in my yard, and I always used to say to my kids, long before I knew about this business, I always used to say to my kids, when I die, just put me in the mulch pile, please. And
See, I always thought mulch had to be wood. It can be anything.
oh, compost, I think.
Okay, that's what. Okay.
I'm using the words interchangeably,
Yeah.
but
Okay. So compost.
maybe
Yeah.
they're not. But yeah, that and I think even the reason I got turned on to that woman was there was another woman named Caitlin Doty. She was an author, but she worked when she was 23 years old at a crematorium in Oakland for a year, and she loved it. And so she went on to go to mortician school and really turn that business, turn that industry on its head a little bit, offering people more alternatives than, and letting people know that they don't have to do all the things that we believe that you have to do. You know, it's notoriously mortuaries are. They tend to kick people when they're down a little bit. So Caitlin Doty kind of changed the industry of, and she was a terrific interview, really fascinating stuff. I think that I have a little Charles Adams in me. I think I'm fascinated by things like death.
A little Charles Adams never hurt anybody, in
Yeah.
my view. So basically, you're referring to what you do on stage. I think we just showed people what you do on stage. You don't tell scripted jokes so much as kind of deliver a monologue, right?
I don't have an act exactly. I have what I do on stage is a little bit like being a pinball. You know, I'll start out coming down, headed right for triple score or whatever it is.
And then someone hits the flipper.
Yeah, exactly. And then I go in that direction, and then I go in that direction. My favorite part of every show is just plain talking to the audience. I do the time-honored, where are you from, what do you do for a living? And in this way, little biographies of audience members emerge, and I use that from which to set my sails. So certainly I have jokes, but probably on a good night, and I like to think that some are, probably on a good night, a third to half of the show is stuff that I, won't be said again. Won't wasn't said before, and won't, unique just to that show. Yeah, I have no memory, so that's part of my problem.
Yes.
And if it really is sort of how I started working that way, was that I would go on an open mic night planning to do my 5 minutes that I had memorized, and something would throw me off. And or I would notice something even on my way to the stage, and I would say it when I got on, and then I would realize, well, now I don't know where I am in the 5 minutes, because comics were very touchy about you doing exactly 5 minutes, because everybody wanted to go on. And so if you took a little bit more than your turn, people were perhaps legitimately pissed. But so then I would panic, and everything that I meant to say would fall right out of my head. And so I was stuck going like, how about you, sir? And then later I realized, I forget at what point. I mean, originally I felt like, oh, isn't that awful? I can't remember what I'm trying to say, and then I get screwed up, and then and then I don't know. One night it occurred to me as I was reflecting on my work that usually those parts where I didn't know what I was doing were the fun parts.
Yeah,
it was really the heart of what I was doing, and so I started to sort of allow for it instead of bedeviling myself over it. That's how I can afford stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah. So that beauteous home furnishing came from this fine work that I do.
I like what you got in back. You had Lucy and Desi back there. That's cool.
Yeah, I like it too. It's and I forget how I stumbled onto it, but as an artist in New Hampshire that made I have a Three Stooges bench as well and a
Oh,
Humphrey
great.
Bogart bench. Yeah,
I
Stooges bench
hope
is
the Three
great.
Stooges bench has the original Curly in it because
Yes, it
that was
does.
the best. Yes,
And Mo has a wrench on his nose,
of
so
course.
it's full scale Three Stooges.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm looking above my computer right now, and I'm seeing I have a 6 pack of Three Stooges beer up there
Oh, really?
that I never,
Uh,
yeah, that I never got around. I'm keeping it as a collector's item. It's probably undrinkable now, but it's got Mo, Larry, and Curly underneath that says, "We all put the yeast in."
I, I say that all the time.
So I'm sympathetic. My wife can't stand them, but I think they're hilarious.
You know what? I've never, people say, well, men like them and women don't. That's not true at all. Your
Yeah.
wife maybe doesn't like them, but I have a couple times been to Three Stooges Film Festival at the historic Alec Theater in Glendale, California, and that theater was packed with men and women,
Mm-hmm.
all just delighted I mean, seeing them on the big screen is the best.
Yeah.
And sitting with a group of people that all share the love of them.
Yeah.
In fact, my dog, the one that looks more like the one that looks more like a golden retriever, she's her name is Mo.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, she's a little Mo-like.
Controlling, like she's
She's a little.
gotta run everything. Yeah.
She's cranky. She's very
Yeah.
cranky. Yeah, you got to. You know what Larry and Curly made the mistake of not doing? They should have every day. They should have tried to tire Mo out in the beginning of the day so they wouldn't hit him so much.
Keep him running around. Would have worked out fine. That's it for part one of my Paula Poundstone interview, but please go on and check out part two, where we talk about the fast-paced and exciting world of podcasting and also the Poundstone product empire. See you there.